WellPoint Anthem, as Lindsay said, we're going through a name change. So at the end of this year, we will leave the WellPoint name behind and we will become Anthem, which is the brand that many know us by in the local markets that we operate, the health insurance brand. The marketing function within WellPoint, I think, is maybe a bit unique organizationally in that the sister functions that reside alongside marketing are strategy, M&A, business development, and innovation. And there's 3 leaders. I lead all of the marketing functions. We report to a head of strategy for the company who reports into the CEO. So in our organization, marketing has really been organized such that it's a key driver of growth. So it's very much at the table when it comes to thinking about the company's long-term growth horizons, how we innovate. Oftentimes, marketing's very involved with M&A. We've grown a lot through M&A. And I lead the marketing function. In my organization, there are 2, I think, large cuts between different functions. On one hand, we have the company's divided into 2 divisions, commercial and specialty business division, which is where you have all of the employer-sponsored health care, individual health exchanges, a variety of specialty businesses. This other division is government, which is the Medicaid and Medicare business. And I have 3 leaders who lead those divisions, and they are, in essence, sort of ringleaders. I refer to them as ringleaders, but they're really the general contractors that are sitting at the table with the business heads, the P&L leaders, who are designing the annual marketing plans. And they really sort of run the marketing activities from beginning to end. And then we have a number of centers of excellence that support all of the marketing functions for the business. We have a center of excellence that consists of brand, marketing communications, advertising, and social media. We have a center of excellence that's all around consumer marketing, so all of the direct response, direct-to-consumer marketing activities. In that function also includes telesales, so we have sort of a closed loop on all sort of direct-to-consumer marketing. We have a digital group. All these report to me today. We have a digital group, which is all of our web, mobile, digital properties. Within that, you have user experience design, as well as our digital product managers. We have a research and insights group. We have a strategic marketing group, which sort of incubates enterprise initiatives like multicultural. And then we have a telemedicine business that called Live Health Online that we offer as well. So, and then most recently, we are adding a consumer experience function. So marketing in our organization is very broad and it's very tied to the growth agenda. And my role is to lead those functions and to work with the business to meet our objectives. I think health insurance would probably rival phone carriers for data. As people know, health insurance is a very data-intensive industry segment, and we have mountains of data. So much so that I think our challenge, maybe like the other guests here, is really around the analytics to make use of the data. So I heard somebody say earlier today that big data is like being at sea and dying of thirst. You're surrounded by water, but you're dying of thirst. And I think that's sort of our challenge more than anything. I would say that the 3 primary uses of data in our organization, I think one is just much more efficient and cost-effective targeting for our offers. Would probably be number 1. Number 2 is just trying to understand consumer experiences with our company and then trying to use that experiential data to improve customer service. And then the third that I think is probably really unique to health insurance is much of our costs are driven by individuals' healthcare patterns and healthcare utilization. And so we're really working hard to use our data to encourage the right engagement in some of our health, wellness, and clinical programs. Because if we do a great job with that, it allows us to help control our costs, control our premiums, and then therefore to make our offering more attractive. I think our gaps, one is we've grown through acquisition, so we really struggle with the source of truth as well. I think that's something that big, diversified, national companies always struggle with. And we've got quite a few investments right now to create what we're calling a consumer hub, where we can create a service architecture, if you will, that we can have one source of truth for data to drive our acquisition, to drive our clinical program engagement, as well as customer service. The second, I think you mentioned predictive analytics. That's an area where for us today, we are, I think, much more retrospective in our review and really have a difficult time predicting which customers are going to stay, predicting which customers are the most profitable, which have the greatest value to us. That's a pretty significant issue. And then finally, I would say transaction data. We have everything from call center transaction to claims data when you go to a doctor or to a hospital, and trying to marry that data with appended data that you can get from KDM and other partners to really get a broad view of not only people's past experiences with us, but attitudinal and behavior data that can inform how we might market to them. So we're really, I think, at the early stages of trying to make use of a very rich data set in health insurance and using it to deliver better care and more loyal customers.
Great. So, one of the other things, if we're playing buzzword thing.
What we've used to sort of unify those functions is very similar, I would say. Two things come to mind. One, content has become a tool to unify what are oftentimes very different marketing functions sort of going off in their own direction and then ultimately creating a very dissonant experience for a consumer. And so I think we've spent a lot of time trying to really anchor everything we do around the content, and then depending on where in the consumer journey, if you will, the content could be used, we're using that to bring the right players to the table. And as you described, maybe what the content looks like on social is different than display, which is different than email. Content and really making that almost a new discipline, frankly, for our organization, really anchoring on content, I think has broken down some of those fiefdoms for us. I think the second thing that's allowed us to sort of break down barriers that existed in really dissonant experiences is really looking at the consumer experience. It's real easy when you harken back to a very traditional brand funnel from awareness to consideration through to conversion, et cetera, to also think of marketing in silos. Some people are working at the top of the funnel, some people are in the middle of the funnel, some people at the end of the funnel, and that leads to a lot of, I think, natural fragmentation of the consumer experience. And so what we've done is spend a lot of time decomposing the consumer experience from the initial sort of nonlinear purchasing journey all the way through to retention and re-enrollment. And when you do that with a cross-functional marketing team, you start to understand, to use Lindsay's term, brand direct. I mean, I think we're closing that gap, because I really don't think of brand versus direct as much as I used to. The person that runs brand would say, I'm running a brand campaign, I've got a banner ad, and then the direct response individual is looking at search activity following a brand campaign. And next thing you know, they're sort of seeing the same campaign through different eyes and see themselves as connected. And you see the same connection with social. So in many ways, I think it's helping people understand how the functions fit together. And I think content and brand actually sort of the unifier of all of it. If you really showcase that, it's easy to connect the dots.
Yeah, interesting. And content marketing clearly shifts some of the investment into retention and loyalty programs. So, in healthcare, loyalty is it loyalty to the wellness program or is it loyalty to WellPoint? Leslie, why don't you start with that? Because you certainly have experience with loyalty programs from an airline perspective.
Right. My team supports both sides of the house. Mileage.
Really good question in healthcare, because I think even for those of you that aren't in healthcare probably can appreciate that healthcare insurance is becoming much more of a consumer product category like it's never been before, with the Affordable Care Act and the creation of the health insurance exchanges. And so how that shift or rebalancing occurred from sort of more acquisition to retention and loyalty in our industry is, and this is happening as we speak in our company. When our company started to really assess what's going on in our industry, what you see is a big shift from a B2B industry to a B2C industry. Health insurance historically has been all about selling to an employer. It's been convincing the head of human resources, convincing the CFO that we can control medical cost trend. They make a selection. They select your company. The consumer really was secondary in that, because at the end of the day, in employer-sponsored business, switching insurance carriers is a big deal. It's hard to do. There's a lot of switching costs associated with it. And so the consumer in our world was always secondary. It was always, and I don't mean that we didn't focus on the consumer, but I meant that the purchaser was the business. And those switching costs were so high, we could focus more on the first sale and not the second sale. And as we started to build our 5-year plan, as ACA was being approved, we started to build out our financial models, our shareholder return models, and we saw that roughly 70% of our growth was going to come from products where the consumer was making a choice, not the employer. Individual exchanges, Medicare Advantage, etc. We also saw data that the consumer is going to be shouldering a greater burden of total health care expenditures. So they're going to care more and more about their insurance policy. And so as we started to look at those sort of shifting centers of gravity, if you will, in our industry, we realized that it was going to be a lot more about the consumer, a lot less about the business-to-business relationship, and we needed to focus more of our investment on that consumer experience and loyalty. And so much of what we're doing now is really shifting that balance from just acquisition and just sort of the top of the funnel to the back of the funnel, because the consumer is now playing a vital role in making a choice and shouldering more of the healthcare cost burden.
Yeah, for AT&T that being redefined, you're hearing things like engagement lifetime value and social lifetime value. Whether these are just trending or real. How are you guys being held to the fire these days in terms of return on investment?
ROI for United is extremely important.
ROI is integral to everything that we do, and we do our best to measure it. It's not always easy, as those of you that are involved experience every day. I would say one of the things that where I think maybe ROI is going to go in the future, and I just put myself in this example, is that I do believe the customer experience is going to continue to increasingly be a more significant part of a marketer's job, that there's going to be more and more accountability, especially at CMO level, that is expected of you. And so just to give you an example, in our organization, as I think I played a leadership role to help the company understand the importance of the consumer experience across the touch points from beginning to end. In doing that accountabilities come with it. Well, how are we going to measure our consumer experience? And you start to uncover metrics like, in our world we call our customers members, but member effort at a particular touch point, net promoter score. These are all, for our industry, these are totally new metrics. And the CEO is starting to ask me questions around how are we going to build net promoter score into the executive leadership's team compensation packages. And you very quickly realize that you're opening up a whole new set of metrics that go well beyond just traditional direct response metrics or traditional brand metrics. And now you're getting into these metrics again around engagement, member effort, satisfaction. And I do believe that directionally all those lead to more valued members and long-term retention and loyalty if you can move them, and that creates shareholder value. And so I think, to your question, I think ROI for marketing is going to quickly encapsulate consumer experience metrics across every touch point, whether you're individually responsible for it or not. I think it's going to become an important part of how we're measured as marketers.
For us as a